I had nothing when I came out.
Freedom, it was once said, is just another word for nothing left to lose.
Literally nothing.
But you don't have to tell that to Joe Fry.
But I have nothing. Well, that's not true. I have me. I have my determination and my tenacity.
It took all of those things and a little luck to put him on the path to a new life. It all began in the dark of night some 20 years ago. Deep in the archives of the Oshkosh Northwestern, on the old microfilm, you'll find the beginnings of Joe Fry's nightmare. A man had broken into the apartment of a UW Oshkosh student and raped her at knife point.
The public was in an outrage about it.
And in 1994, Joe Fry was charged. Fry proclaimed his innocence, insisting he was never at the crime scene.
I was convicted.
His trial was short. His sentence was not.
Given 102 years and
sent to prison for the rest of his life, Fry thought about ending it.
All you're doing is existing from day to day.
Existing in a 6x8 foot cell, one thought kept him living.
So I had to learn law as best I could on my own.
That he could learn criminal defense and prove his innocence, he spent hours reading law books.
By no way am I a Perry Mason or anything like that. And I don't want to be. I didn't try to be. I was just fighting for my life. That's all. That's all I was doing.
For years, he attempted to get someone to re-examine the case, filing appeal after appeal. But each time, he was denied.
It's like a death nail. You know, it was a death nail. But I'm sitting on the inside of that casket with a hammer pounding it back out the other way because I'm not accepting it.
The original police reports.
The only resource I had left was
our original motion that we filed.
The Innocence Project.
Let's see.
University of Wisconsin law professor Tricia Bushnell.
We've got the original plea agreements that were offered to him.
And her students with the Wisconsin Innocence Project agreed to look at the case. What they found was the story of a life, reflected back in mugshots and court filings. In those documents, they saw a questionable conviction. A DNA test at the time of his trial did not match evidence at the scene and should have cleared Fry.
If it doesn't match, how could you consciously go forward with this?
Instead, a jury was convinced to convict him by jailhouse snitch testimony and an uncertain identification by the rape victim, who could say only this: the rapist had a chubby build, a mustache, and a raspy voice.
She never totally said, that's the guy, he's the one who did it.
But that was all known at the time of the trial. Bushnell and her students needed something new, something that would advance a new defense, and went to the Winnebago County Clerk's office.
At that time, the clerk said, I don't think that I would have anything from a case this old, but she went and she checked and she found this piece of evidence sort of tucked in the back of a cabinet at that time.
It contained the one thing that could help: clippings of a stained sheet from the rape victim's bedroom, the key to proving Fry's innocence.
Now what we know is that it matched someone else who had been a convicted sex offender and who was in the CODIS database.
The DNA actually matched James Crawford.
They got his name, they knew who he was, and it wasn't me.
Soon after, Fry's conviction was officially vacated, and he was a free man.
I fought for it for all these years, and finally, to have that realization strike you is overwhelming.
Fry walked out of the prison gates as a man without a home. He had serious health concerns, diabetes, blood clots, and a degenerative bone disease. He also suddenly found himself without health insurance.
All I had was maybe 10 days supply of medication.
Joe was released, but he was released without $1 in his pocket, with nowhere to stay, with no services for him.
This was home for 35 days. 40 plus grown men down here. I used to be up in this corner here.
He found a homeless shelter.
If he was being released on probation or parole, he would be assigned a caseworker who would help him find housing, education opportunities, a job. But that's not what happens when a conviction's just thrown out.
It's about 3 inches thick.
If Joe had been released on parole as a guilty person, he would get more support from the state than he gets for being released as an innocent person who didn't commit the crime.
I mean, you have to survive.
Then when we realize we've made a mistake, what do? We open the prison doors and we say, have a good life.
And Wisconsin is the worst in the nation when it comes to correcting these grievous mistakes. Wisconsin law states that the wrongfully convicted can get only $5,000 a year for up to 5 years, a maximum of $25,000 total, no matter how many years were spent in prison.
Well, I'd be willing to offer any state legislator, any state Senate officer, $25,000 to live on for 5 years and see if he felt that was enough.
You can't put a dollar amount on someone's loss of a year or several years.
Now, State Representative Gary Hebel of Sun Prairie has written a bill that would increase compensation, getting rid of the caps.
Protecting someone who's been wrongfully convicted and allowing them to get a new start, a second chance at their life.
When you look for wrongful convictions, you find them.
Fry spends his days looking for work. Still unemployed, it is a constant reminder of the double injustice he suffered.
To put a face to this problem, we've got to address this.
He knows he still has a long journey, but the end of one story is really just the beginning of another.
It's the beginning of a new life, and it's the first chapter.
In Madison, Mike Lowe, Fox 6 News.